When I was born, the midwife didn't drop me. It was the start of an uneventful life. Think of the most uninteresting person you know, somebody who makes your heart sink into your shoes whenever they walk into the room. 10 minutes alone with this person will seem like an hour and a half. The silence will be so uncomfortable you'll be sweating like you're in a Turkish bath dressed in a duffel coat and a balaclava. Think of the worst possible guest to appear on a chat show. Or picture this television scene. There they are on that old programme, This Is Your Life, and the host has just presented them with their big red book. Only it's not big, it's not red, and it's the back of a bus ticket. Think of that person, then double them, times them by 2. Add 3, cube them, and tell them, hey, calm down a bit, you'll give yourself a heart attack with all this excitement. Think of me. I should probably also tell you something my English teacher wrote about me on my final school report. He wrote, Douglas lacks creativity and imagination. 5 words, 37 characters, no spaces. Douglas lacks creativity and imagination. When I was 15, I went to see my school's career officer. He asked me what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I told him I didn't know. The careers officer said, have you thought about the army? And I told him, not in that way. Have you considered staying on another year at school? He asked. What, further education? And I said, yes, he nodded. No, I told him I had enough of that, thank you. I didn't want to spend a moment longer there than the law demanded of me. Right, well, what would you say was your ambition, your goal after you finished your education? I didn't have an ambition, no goals. I would have called myself a slacker, but that implies some sort of ethos or philosophy. Slackers have a plan, even if it is simply to do as little as possible. Slackers are intentionally underachieving. I didn't mean to do it. A slacker's goal is to not have a goal. I, on the other hand, was simply, like that year's FA Cup final between Arsenal and Manchester United, goalless. The careers officer looked up at the big white-faced black-hand school clock, wrote something negative about me next to all his doodle cubes and cartoon faces on a piece of paper and said, yep, right, let's leave it at that for now. Go away, give it some thought and come back and see me next week. Can you send the next person in, please? And so I sent them in. I sent in the next 15-year-old wannabe paleontologist, priest or pop star, all wound up and raring to get up and go for it, to leave their mark on the world. How smug and self-satisfied they must have felt years later, down on their knees in a sandpit dusting for dinosaurs with an old paintbrush, or doing a little bit of God's work for him on his day of rest, or with a television camera up their skirt on top of the pops, living the dream. Those kids had more drive than Windsor Castle. In comparison, I was terraced housing. No drive, you see. I managed to drift from adolescence to adulthood without ever really knowing what I wanted to do. I had no qualifications, no university education, no flat black and square cardboard hat to throw in the air. I didn't take a gap year off teaching fat kids how to swim at Camp America. I didn't spend 12 months bumming around in a tie-dye sarong on a beach in Thailand, smoking the university education back out of myself. Instead, I stumbled into one humdrum job after another, staying till I grew bored or wasn't needed any longer, then moving on to another humdrum job. Today you'll find me working for an advertising agency in the windowless basement of a Victorian building in Soho Square. A building that was once the colour of a cherry red Dr. Martin, but now, with all the bad weather, pollution and pigeon shit that's rained down on it, looks more like it was built from old mixed up plasticine. 2 floors up from the windowless basement you can hear the snip-snip of people cutting out advertisements from newspapers and magazines. The advertisements are glued onto invoices and sent to the company's clients to prove that we hadn't just taken their money and spent it on sweets and whores without ever putting their ad in the paper. What's left of the papers and magazines, with all the adverts cut out like they've been vetted by the prison governor or censored by the Gestapo, googled by the Chinese, are then sent downstairs to me to file away onto shelves, alphabetically and chronologically. Those would be my 2 key job skills. Every 4 weeks I have to clear out the old papers, tie them up with coarse string, stuff them into Hessian sacks and put them outside for the recycling man. The Hessian sacks and hairy string both make the backs of my hands pink and itchy, all rough and cracked like elephant skin, and then there are the paper cuts. Ooh, the paper cuts. That would be the worst thing about this job. The boredom and loneliness I kind of enjoy. Often a whole day would pass without anyone coming down to visit me to borrow a copy of last month's Yorkshire Evening Post, or to return a censored classic tractor magazine. I could be down in the basement building a bomb or cutting up a body. Nobody would ever know. If people ask me what it is I do for a living, I say that I work in advertising, like I'm Saatchi or Saatchi.